everyone! In today's video, we're going to be comparing the Sony GM 35mm f1.4 versus the Sigma 35mm f1.4, and I'm going to use both these lenses on the A7IV, two camera bodies that are set up exactly the same, so let's get started. I'm starting off on the GM 35 and we're going to be taking some full body shots here. I'd actually get you angled this way so we get less white sky in the background. I want to say thank you to Canva for sponsoring today's video. Let's start off with the build of these lenses. This Sigma 35 weighs 640 grams versus the GM 35, which weighs a bit over 100 grams lighter at 524 grams. And now I've switched over to the Sigma 35 and we'll get the same shot on this lens as well. Look cool with your arms crossed for one of the shots, yeah. For a standard portrait session, the weight of these lenses doesn't make too much of a difference to me personally, but if you're going to use these for weddings or travel photography, being able to shave off 100 grams with the GM might come in handy. Both the GM and Sigma feature a 67mm filter thread, an aperture ring, an auto setting on the aperture ring, a D-click switch, AF to MF switch, and an AFL button that can be customized. The only other physical difference between these lenses is that the Sigma has a lock switch which lets you lock your aperture ring in or out of auto mode. I think it'll look really cool if you sat like just here on the rock with like your legs sideways. Yeah, that looks really cool there. So the next spot we have here is a little more in the shade, so I think that'll look quite different to the backlight that we had before. Now that you've seen a few of the comparison images that we've taken so far, I have to say I'm pretty impressed that these lenses with a pretty large price difference produce extremely similar looking results. When I'm editing photos from a lens comparison video like this, I can always tell what lens I'm retouching without even looking at the metadata. While I was editing these photos though, a lot of the time I couldn't tell which is which. The Sigma and GM 35mm f1.4 have great image quality. Both lenses are nice and sharp. I love the look of the skin texture and all the finer details that you can see in the photos. One of the main differences that would help me guess which one is which is that the GM has the classic GM cool color cast, whereas the Sigma is a little warmer straight out of the camera. I didn't find that this affected me at all while editing though. The bokeh from both lenses are extremely similar as well. It's mostly nice and round throughout the frame, forming more of an eye shape towards the corners and edges, and the bokeh is very clean as well. So back on the GM, and I'm going to take some mid-length photos at f2.8 as well, because everything else we've shot so far is wide open. At f2.8, again, both lenses are beautifully sharp with lots of clarity. I'm going to switch the Sigma over to 2.8 as well, and we'll get the same shots again. Oh, that's so pretty there. Since these lenses are so similar, I really have to nitpick to find any differences, to be honest, and with the aperture stepped down, the Sigma photo seems to have more contrast with deeper shadows compared to the GM, which appears flatter in the tones. Let me know if you prefer the Sony or the Sigma so far down in the comments. So you might be thinking, it's not looking too good for the GM. For a cheaper price point, you can get a lens that produces almost identical results. And this is true for a lot of styles of photography, but next, let's take a look at autofocus performance and accuracy, because this is where the GM does start to pull ahead of the Sigma. I'm gonna try and get one where you have your eye in the sun. Oh, there. That's okay. I think we got a couple with it. It keeps moving, I think, because of the wind. The autofocus performance from these lenses is solid, and I honestly couldn't feel much of a difference when it came to IEF on the day for standard portrait photography. However, as I just mentioned, one of the key differences the GM has against the Sigma is if you're using a camera body with high FPS capability. On the A1, you would be able to use the GM to shoot up to 30 FPS, which you can't do with the Sigma. On the A7IV, on the other hand, and shooting portraits, both lenses feel almost exactly the same.
I think it'd be cool if we start like here and just walk that way. Okay, we're gonna do one walking shot with both lenses. I'm gonna take about 15 to 20 photos, depending how many it takes to get to the other side of the road. And we'll do this wide open as well, so it's on hard mode.
When you have a fast-moving subject is where you can also start seeing the difference between these lenses. In these walking shots, I found the GM did a better job at keeping up with the subject, and I have 20 out of 23 photos with critical focus on the eyes. The Sigma, on the other hand, missed focus more often with a total of 12 out of 23 photos with critical focus. I wouldn't say this is bad. For portrait photography, this is still a good focus ratio for a subject that's walking towards you. But if you're wanting to shoot sports, dances, or animals with one of these 35s, or any subject that moves quite fast, then the GM would be the way to go. For the rest of this portrait session, where Sophie is not walking right towards me, I had a very similar focus ratio with both lenses. The GM again had a slightly higher number of photos in focus compared to the Sigma, but overall it was very similar.
Hold on to this, you can kind of lean into it. So we've come up here to get a few more shots without the lens hood. I'm just wearing it as a bracelet because it is extremely bright, and we have the reflection from the sun and the water as well. So we'll see how that goes at wide open here with both lenses. I'm trying to crop out the fence for these as well. That looks really, really cool.
We managed to get some nice backlight in our location, and yet again, these lenses performed almost the same as each other in these conditions as well. Both lenses focused with ease in these backlit spots, and Sophie cuts through the backlight really nicely in these shots as well. The Sigma and GM have good control over chromatic aberration. At our portrait photo shoot, I didn't have any CA in my photos, so I took some extra sample photos on another day, and you can see that they have a very similar amount of CA. It's very minimal, so this would be easily removable.
Trying not to get the harbour bridge in the background. It is a bit touristy.
The Sigma and GM 35mm f1.4 have a subtle lens flare, and I love what both lens flares look like. The Sigma lens flare does a better job at blending into the photo from the test photos that I captured. I enjoy shooting with nice lens flares, so I would be more inclined to shoot without the lens hood on the Sigma. The GM lens flare also blends into the photo nicely, but at some angles you can capture a more defined looking flare that can become distracting in the image. To wrap up this comparison, I also have some video examples. These were all filmed on the Sony A7IV by Dan. Each lens does a great job at keeping up with focus when the subject or the camera is moving around, and in my opinion, they both look so beautiful for video. Both lenses have a fair amount of focus breathing, and I would say it's more prominent on the GM. My final thoughts are that for general photography, both lenses are easy to use with strong performance and extremely similar results. It's so great to see that in a third-party lens like the Sigma 35mm f1.4 DGDN, as it does come with a cheaper price tag compared to the GM. Something interesting to me is that I even prefer the lens flare of the Sigma over the GM. On the other hand, the GM is an option to consider if you shoot fast-moving subjects or you have a camera body like the A1. So that is all I have for today's comparison video between the Sigma and the GM 35mm f1.4. I'd love to know what you think of the similarities and differences of these lenses down in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I will see you all next time. Bye! Lens flare.